right. Get it.
So I have surgery tomorrow.
On you, or is it a class?
No, on me.
Where?
On my woman plumbing.
What?
I don't know. It's called laser excision or something. It's like cutting a section out of my cervix.
I mean, is there dead tissue there?
Yes, it's precancerous tissue.
So they found something in your pap.
Yes. I mean, 80% of the time it's supposed to regress, but it didn't, so I'm going to get it lasered off.
I mean, will they give you an epidural?
No, they're going to sedate me.
Ooh, all the way.
Yes, just sleeping. I'm sure it's going to be fine. The VA was a total clusterfuck. For the past year and a half, I've had like a different doctor and a different doctor and a different doctor every single time. And I'm like, I want consistent care, you know? It's like someone I don't even know is going to be looking at my vajayjay.
Ooh, your vajayjay.
Oh, really? It's sacred down there, right, ladies? I mean, you didn't even talk nice to me and buy me dinner. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, I know they don't care. I work in medicine, but that's exactly why I'm freaked out. Everything's going to be exposed. I'm going to be laying there with my coochie in the air. Pap smears for me have just always been really traumatic. I think it all started with the first lady that gave me a fucking pap smear. You know, I got a pap smear because the Army made me do it. But seriously, we were getting ready to deploy to Iraq, so it was absolutely necessary that you do it. And I kept trying to tell the Army that I didn't want to because I was still a virgin. And they were like, you still have to do it. So I went in, and I swear to God, it was like she raped me. Like, she stuck her whole arm down there. I don't know what she was doing. But from then on, for me, pap smears are like nightmares. My friend's going with me, so it'll be okay.
Okay.
Happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day to you. So, being a vet, what comes to mind?
I think a lot about basic training. At the time, I was really miserable. I hated it. But when I look back, I don't know, it was just a mind fuck. It's so easy to fuck with your mind because you're physically exhausted. When I was in basic in 2003, I had these 2 drill sergeants who were just like night and day. One of them was really tall and lanky and white, and you couldn't imagine him doing anything else but being in the Army. And he had this whole walk down like he was a badass. He was an 11 Bravo infantryman, and obviously not happy being a drill sergeant. He would have preferred to be on the front lines. And the other one was this kind of short, stocky white guy, Drill Sergeant Jacobson, and I swear to God, he was bipolar. No, I'm serious. I mean, 1 minute, everything was good and fine, and then all of a sudden, like, snap, and he's going off on you. So at the end of basic training, I got to be the platoon guide. So, like, whatever the platoon needed to accomplish, they would tell me, and I'd go and bark orders and stuff. My squad leaders were these 4 grown-ass men with kids, probably my age, and one was this huge old white dude, just big. I think he was like 35 or 36, something like that. And there's my little us looking up, and I'm going, all right, this is what we're gonna do, guys. And I remember this one day, my drill sergeant, the bipolar one, he told me that we needed to do something, some task, some stupid task. So I went and I summoned my squad down the hill. We were doing F-techs, which are field training exercises. And this was Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and it was like fucking negative 100 degrees. So I go down the hill, we're out in the woods, and we're living there for like a week or something. And it's like our final phase before we graduate. And he calls me up the hill, screaming like a motherfucker, Barranco! So I go up the hill, and he tells me what I have to do, and I go back down the hill, and I summon my squad leaders. And I tell them what we have to do, and of course, they're not happy. So they go back, and the shit doesn't get done because my squad leaders weren't listening to me. So I thought I was gonna get my ass hemmed up. So my drill sergeant summoned the whole platoon, and he said, Private Bronco, fall out! And I fell out, and he had the whole platoon running in full gear like battle rattle, and he starts screaming at them, this is your platoon guide, and you're not listening to her. This is your platoon guide, and you listen to her. And the next time I fucking tell you to do something and you disobey it, and he's just going off. And the whole time, they're running around the camp to the top of the hill. And I was like, forget it. And I start running with them. Because that's my platoon. I mean, I know it's fucked up, but that's my platoon. And he just looks at me and looked the other way. I know he didn't want me to run with him. So the next day, I thought he was gonna fucking kill me. I mean, literally, I thought he was gonna kill me. Because he comes up to me and he has like this red cup of coffee. Like this steaming cup of coffee, and it's negative 100 degrees. And he has this steaming fucking coffee, and he yells at the top of the hill, and we're doing some exercises or bullshit, I don't even know what the hell we were doing. And he screams, Barranco! And I go running up the hill, and I'm like, yes, drill sergeant! And I stand at attention in front of him. And he's like sipping the coffee, and he's like, you want some coffee? And I thought it was like a trick question, because I thought he was fucking with my head, because I'm physically exhausted. It's a good time to take advantage of me. And I was like, no, drill sergeant! He's like, Barranco, I'm telling you, do you want some fucking coffee? And we're going on like an hour of sleep, and I've probably not eaten because you have to frickin' cover your squad, and you only get a certain amount of time, whatever. But he's like, Barranco, I'm not gonna tell you again. Do you want some fucking coffee? And I'm like, no, drill sergeant! Because I still think he's fucking with my head, and it's out of the same cup that he's drinking out of. And so finally I'm like, all right. And then of course my dumbass, I burn my fucking tongue because it's hot as balls. I give the cup back to him, and he just smiles. He has this little Cheshire cat smile, and I just left. And I don't know why that always sticks out in my head, but it does. I mean, that dude was crazy, but nonetheless, I think he liked me. Because I was cussing up a storm and trying to get shit done, and I think that says a lot for the way people are in the military. We're about getting shit done. And we're motivated, and we're driven, and we might act like badasses, but inside we're like cream puffs. I still remember him to this day. It's so vivid. It's been 5 or 6 years now, but I remember his face, that coffee, the red cup. It's crazy.
Crazy.
My name is Abraham Salazar Beruman. I was born in 1985 in Zacatecas, Mexico. When I was 3, we moved to California. In 1999, when I was 13, we moved to Chicago. In the summers, I worked for my uncle Ignacio. He's pretty strict. He's pretty tough. He owns his own tow truck business. He expected me to do everything almost perfect, the same way that he does it. So every time that I messed up, he would just throw a fit like, haven't I showed you once? How come you don't do it? I just sort of gave that motivation to me, he could tell me that I'm basically a bag of shit, but I could show him that I'm not. So that's where the expectation of being in the military came from. And it also came from that I survived a lot in my young life. I saw the military as a challenge, putting the stakes a little bit higher to see how much more I can take. In high school, I chose the Marines because it was the toughest, but also because they were the ones who called first. I joined the delay entry program my junior year, August 19th. 2003, I shipped out to San Diego for a boot camp. There were some Marines that already graduated boot camp, and they were telling us horror stories. I was like, oh shit, what did I get myself into now? We got our initial gear, the running shoes, the camis, and the skivvies and all that, and we had to strip down and put them on. And me, well, I was a little bit slow on it, and I ended up only being half dressed most of the time. We were introduced to the drill instructors, and once they gave the order,
Drill instructors, make these recruits Marines!
it was hell in that squad bay. I was the slow one. I was still like in a fog. I couldn't get out of it. It was fear, just fear of something new. The drill instructor, he came to my side and he said within a week, he's gonna have me in the hallway crying like a baby.
Hold it!
Drill, that was something I could never master. I always ended up either, going out of step or pivoting on the wrong foot.
Open ranks,
And then
halt!
they came with our rifles. Oh man, I was very nervous. It was like, what? The rifle itself weighs like 7 pounds empty. For me, it felt like I was carrying another part of myself that wasn't even myself. I mean, I got good on taking it apart, but what I wasn't good at was I could never get the bolt to go at the rhythm. I'll be like
Inspection!
right here, and then you have to pull back the bolt and then lock it, and you have to pull back the charging lever, and I was never able to lock in the bolt.
Forward, hard!
I was always the one that everyone would finish in sync, and then after like 5 seconds, you'd hear that last clunk on the rifle. That was me.
Wrestling, hard!
Towards the final drill, I got not good, but I got better. Keeping with the steps, that was better. And so I still have trouble, with the pivoting, like when I turn 45 degrees, like to this day, I could never master it. Tango Battery 511. That's where I met my buddy. One of my best buddies. His name was Antonio Mendoza. The reason we were buddies was that, I saw him like a mentor when we were both short. I'm 5'1", he might have been 5'2", so we were pretty short. And in the military, especially in the Marine Corps, there ain't that many short people. So. Also, he spoke Spanish, and if you were having a bad day, you were liven your day up. After I left Iraq and was back at Camp Pendleton, I learned that the lead vehicle of the convoy he was in had been attacked by a bomb, by an IED, and that some of the guys were badly burned. Corporal Mendoza, his body was burned 80 to 90%. He survived the attack, but he made it to a hospital in Texas and died a few months later. When I learned of his death, I felt numb. I knew it was sad, but at that point I was like, okay, it's sad, but how do I grieve? About 2 days before I got the news that he died, I dreamt him. Sort of like telling me his story and his experience in Iraq. He showed me the actual attack. The weird thing is I saw the dream in black and white, the bomb exploding, and the dream I could actually feel the flames burning me. I will always remember him. He's like a guardian angel to me. When I first arrived in Iraq, I was doing convoys transporting water and stuff like that from Jordan towards Baghdad. The second month I was at Ramadi, and I got put on guard duty. That's where my problems started. I wasn't sleeping much. Our shifts were 4 on, 4 off, depending on the post. They told us, okay, on your 4 off, make sure you sleep. But the thing is, we were in charge of the base, and the NCO was having us do working parties during our time off, so no sleep. I mean, we were on guard duty at the perimeter of the camp. Me and another guy. We started seeing mortars coming in. And at first, we thought it was regular mortar attacks, but then we saw 10 at once, and then 20 at once. And shit, those mortars in front of us, where they were coming from, they're friendly base, and there was mortars coming from behind it, so we couldn't shoot at it. I mean, I felt powerless. Like, okay, I cannot get down, nor can I shoot, so what am I going to do? I tried to radio headquarters, and I was just too hyped up, and they couldn't understand me. After the attack finished, I was exhausted. I was scared. At the moment, the mortars stopped for, I want to say, like 30 minutes. But I didn't know if there was going to be another round or no. I had disbelief. I was, like, shocked. I was sitting on a sandbag, and I started seeing a figure coming from the army side of the camp. I saw him coming forward, but I had to rub my eyes because it looked like he was almost floating. Just wasn't stepping on anything, and it looked like almost like a bright light, but it had a person's shape with real loose clothing and white loose clothing with a black heart in the chest area. First I was in disbelief, but then I was hopeful. I started to tell myself that nothing bad will happen now. When he sat next to me, I was asking him, like, what's gonna happen now? What's the plan? And I think I was asking him out loud. I tell him, please, help me go home safely. And he got close to me, like right next to me on the sandbag. And at that time, I knew it was God. I just knew. And he was lifting me up in his cloak and almost hugging me, but lifting me in his cloak and just wrapping me in it. At that moment, I just saw pure white. Like, the only way I can describe it is when they do special effects in the movies, and the screen goes all white, and that's when I felt all my anxiety and my anger and my tense feelings just melt off. And I felt like I was back at home on the couch watching cartoons. At the time that he embraced me, it almost felt like we came together. But he didn't leave. He just came into me. And he still is with me. Every letter that my mom sent me, at the end, she always writes this prayer. Que Dios te cubra con su santo manto. In Spanish, manto means big robe. His holy cloth. This is what my mother would say at the end of every letter. Let God cover you with his holy cloth. When they came to pick me up, I was calm, but sort of like in a trance. They noticed right away I was a little bit too calm for the actual attack. In the beginning, I spoke about it, but not anymore, because when that happened, everybody was just saying I was crazy. I was sent to Germany, and everything there was really foggy. Then they sent me to Bethesda in Maryland, in the Naval Hospital, and that I do remember. They told me that I had PTSD and bipolar, and started me on medication. Then they sent me back to Camp Pendleton. I was supposed to be in outpatient treatment, but after about a month, I just stopped going. I stopped taking my meds, and I was just hiding my symptoms as much as I could. I was discharged after 6 months back at Camp Pendleton, and my uncle from Pomona, he came and picked me up. I got in a lot of trouble the first night as a civilian. A lot of trouble. But it was a blessing in disguise, because it eventually led me to the VA, where I got proper treatment and meds, and I'm in a voc rehab program to be an electrician. But I feel like the Marines misled me. They promised me that I would have a career and that I would be able to get a job, but they trained me in artillery. Where am I going to get a job in artillery? The future. Well, I have plans and hopes. I'm only 25 years old, but I have doubts and fears too. Sometimes I feel like I'm only a slip away from having no future. I hope I make it. I hope I do.
May 2007. Sergeant Delton Sutherland, back from Iraq 3 years earlier, enters his local 7-Eleven.
You! Towel head. Up against the wall. All y'all got dark skin. I want to know your name, I want to know where you're from, and I want to know what you're doing here.
My name is Salam, and I'm from Bangladesh.
I'm going to be watching you. Turban head, you Muslim too?
Yes, but I'm from Long Beach. The name's Sharif.
Y'all all look Taliban to me. And you, who you?
My name is Rashid. I'm from the south of India. Nothing to do with your war.
Y'all all look like y'all from Iraq. Y'all all look Taliban to me.
Okay. So, be cool.
Don't tell me what to do. We have a saying, stay alert, stay alive. That's all I'm saying. I'm just being cautious. That's how I live my life. I always liked action movies. Like Rambo, Delta Force. I was like, I'm gonna do something like that. I wanted to go to war just to see what it was like. When you see war on TV, it's different than when you actually see it in person. When you're sitting at a TV, you're like, okay, this is TV. I can't touch that. That ain't gonna do nothing to me if it blows up right there because you know it's just a TV. When you're in it, it's a different story. Everybody in my unit wanted to go to war so bad to get into action. So we was training all the time, getting ready. When we got to Iraq, we was ready, but we had to wait. It was funny to me to watch. There was guys that was finding things to do. Guys was digging up scorpions and desert lizards just to watch them fight. The sandstorms were so bad that at 2, 3 in the afternoon, it's like 9 at night, and the sky is red. You don't see the sun. There was one sandstorm, so bad. There was this one guy real near us. He was standing behind the tree. We couldn't see him on account of the sandstorm. So when he went to leave, he started running. If he would have stayed there, he would have lived. It was just funny to me. I mean, we think it was the stupidest thing. We saw the stupidest shit in the war. We had to shoot him because he was a threat. There was no warning shots in Iraq. And my job is, you gonna shoot, it's one shot to kill. You're not gonna shoot to wound. You're not gonna shoot to warn. And a lot of people think it's okay, that it's cool, it's fun to kill people. It's not. It's nothing to be happy about because that stuff takes a toll on you. Our chaplain made it a priority to tell us that this is your job. After the first time, I looked at it as, okay, this is my job. It's either him or me. I'm not gonna kill somebody with wrong intentions. It's self-defense. And so the 10 people that I know I killed, that's how I look at it. It was self-defense.
July 14, 2003, Ambush Alley.
We was there doing our patrol like we usually do, 5:30 in the morning. Next thing, I'm looking at the Humvee in front of me get hit with an RPG. And another bomb blew up on the side of the road. Man, I really thought I was in a movie. But when the RPG hit the truck that I was in and blew up the dash, it knocked me into reality. I hit my head on the dashboard while I was trying to fire out the window. We were shooting at them, returning fire, but our truck was leaking fuel, so we had to get out of there. So we was running down the highway, getting shot at by Iraqis behind us. And our 240 gunner, Private Bird, he was running. And he accidentally pulled his trigger while he was running. And because it's 5:30 in the morning and it's dark, and scouts assumed they was getting fired on, so we got shot at by our own people and getting shot at by the Iraqis from the back. We got closer, and we was waving our hands. We was friendly, and they finally saw our uniforms. Then they came around to us, and we went back to the Humvee. When I opened it up, I had a friend, Sergeant Crockett, that was there. He was the team leader for another squad, but he was in the front seat. He'd gotten hit. And when I opened up the Humvee, it was blood and shit everywhere. He was still alive, but he died in my arms. I gotta get back out there.
Sergeant, you're not in the right mind frame.
No, that was my friend that just died.
Look, you guys shot so many bullet holes in those houses. Whoever was in there, they're not there now.
How you know?
Looks like about 10 people got killed. Some were civilians. We don't know how many got away either. And we'll have the chaplain will come in to talk to you.
This is total shit, you motherfucking assholes! That was my friend that just got shot!
You should not be alone right now, and we're not going to send you back out there right now.
Motherfucking assholes!
What would happen if we sent you out there now?
Honestly, if you sent me back out there right now, this magazine holds 30 rounds. I got 9 magazines. I guarantee I will come back with all of them empty. This is stupid fucking shit! Making us stay here. They were shooting at us. And it's payback time. I just want payback. That was the morning I got my Purple Heart.
Sergeant, clean that out.
We had to clean up Sergeant Crockett's equipment. There was blood all over the place. When I was washing out his helmet, a big piece of meat. Like if you ever go to a Chinese food place and order orange chicken, a piece of his brain fell out the helmet.
Get rid of that. Sergeant, bury it, now!
My life was in a different perspective after I got my Purple Heart. I started looking at it as, you know what? I hated everybody. Everybody that was not a U.S. soldier, I hated everybody in Iraq. You look like you from Iraq, from Iran, from somewhere over there. I hated you because I felt here we are trying to help our country, and here we are getting killed for no reason. The last 4th of July, I spent balled up on a corner of my apartment because of the fireworks, and the gunshots made me feel like I was back in the war. I moved from Hawthorne to Midtown because there was too many gunshots at night. I told the VA, I'm not gonna get a gun. But if I keep hearing gunshots, I'm gonna go out and get a gun. When I turned in an appeal to increase my benefits, they denied it because they felt my situation is not military related. They saying my headaches are not military related. It's like so bad that the people I face now make me hate the military. At the VA, they gave me nightmare pills because they don't want me to drink. What that does is it relaxes all my muscles and heighten all my senses. So, all my dreams, all my nightmares, now they're in 3D. I spend 6 hours a day in the gym, so I'm not on the streets.
I remember this one girl, the first day of basic training. We were all in this auditorium, and of course we're sitting at attention and looking straight ahead. You know, we're like fucking horses with blinders on, right? And out of the corner of my eye, I see this girl get up. And she's crying and bawling, and we all want to look and see, like, who is it? Who is it? And she's crying, I want to go home, I don't want to do this, I can't. And she just got up. And the drill sergeants came from everywhere. You want to pull one of these fucking cards? This is what you're gonna get. And so the drill sergeants were like, bam, like sharks to blood. They fucking come at her and they start screaming, Private so-and-so, get your shit together. Just like that, screaming at her. And she breaks down bawling, I can't do this, I want to go home, I want to go home. And of course, you know what? They had to lay that smack down on her for the rest of us. Because you have to learn that you can't fucking pull that shit. You can't. And at the end of the day, she did end up going home. But in the meantime, she suffered.
Let's make one thing clear. Chris Mandia doesn't need me or anyone else to tell his story. He's a writer, and a darn good one. So, why am I doing this? Well, because when you tell someone's story, it becomes your story, and that's what I want. I want his story to become my story. So, now that I've said that, made that clear, let the story begin. It begins in Iraq, in Baghdad, near the UN building, just before Saddam's statue was pulled down. He's with a buddy, a Marine from Illinois, kind of a country boy, but very smart. A bit older than Chris. The shooting started. They'd heard firing before, of course. But this time, the the first time they realized that the gunfire might be theirs, that the bullets might be aimed right at them, that they might actually be killed or brutally wounded. This realization, kind of vague at first, filled them with a feeling that they didn't want to name. It was fear, of course, but they didn't want to name it. The kind of crawling fear that makes you less than human. Fear that slowly chokes you, and as it chokes you, it slowly changes you. Fear that fills you with a kind of disgust at being human. Chris and his buddy had the same realization at the same time, but neither of them said anything. They didn't want to get in. Both of them. They wanted to stay out of harm's way. They didn't want to get in. All their training came down to that naked fact. They didn't want to get in. And it happened again in Al-Nazariya. This time he arrived after the bullets had been fired. He discovered a whole Iraqi family in an orange and yellow Peugeot. Father was dead, mother and child both living but wounded. Chris helped to remove the wounded woman and her child on a stretcher. The woman had a huge gaping wound on her lower side, right above her leg. Maybe her whole hip was gone. Chris was carrying the head of the stretcher, and so he looked right down into the woman's face. And as they moved, her dress opened and her breasts fell out. A disgrace for a Muslim woman. Chris never forgot the look on her face, the dead, expressionless look of absolute hatred. He remembered the wound in her body, and the disgrace of him looking at her breasts, and Chris wondered, was the wound in her side a wound that he caused? Did he directly produce it? Was he responsible for it? Was the look in her face a look of personal hatred? You did this to me. Of course, Chris would never know, and that made it even worse. He could never be sure, but the woman's face and her open breast haunted him, created a wound in his soul. And that was not the only wound. Her little child had lost a leg. A bleeding stump was protruding from the child's body, moving up and down while the child let out a continuous, pathetic whimper. Mother and child. Madonna and child. Both wounded, both violated. When he came back, he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. The biggest loss was joy. And Chris had been proud to be a Marine. Saw himself as standing in front of a long line. Right behind him were the Vietnam vets who defended the fortress at Khe Sanh. Then the World War II vets who raised the flag on Iwo Jima. And then the doughboys of World War I and the Battle of the Ardennes Forest. He saw himself as belonging to them, standing in line with them, sharing, what'd you call it? Camaraderie. Sharing the funny incidents and the crazy nicknames and the griping and the filthy stories. Let's talk about that line, that long line, that procession of soldiers where Chris sees himself, the long line that he's so proud of. There's a lot of sadness in that line. All those soldiers, all of them, carry a lot of darkness and a lot of pain. And Chris along with them, darkness and pain. But I know about darkness and pain. I've had that. I've held darkness and pain in my heart. I know how it feels. I know the sadness that comes with it, always. I was killed by soldiers. That forms an alliance, very deep bond, a bond of blood, much deeper and much more intense than fighting side by side with them. I was killed by soldiers, and that puts me next to them, shoulder to shoulder. And when I said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, that included soldiers. And when I forgave the ones who killed me, I forgave them all of the soldiers. The wounds in Chris are packed away like stuff you keep in your attic or in old boxes under your bed. Somewhere inside Chris, in his mind, in his soul, like a dormant virus that could break out at any time and cause death. A wound that I will heal. How will I heal it? I'll heal it by telling his story. I will heal it by making his story my story. Because I love this guy. I really love him. Always did and always will. You know, Chris has a recurrent dream about something he hasn't done yet. And in this dream, there's this anxious feeling that there's something vague and indefinite that has not yet been done. And that dream's important because it's true. Chris isn't done yet. Not yet. His story goes on. And by telling it, I will make sure that his story goes on. And that's why the dream he has is such a good dream, because there is something that he hasn't done yet. A lot he hasn't done yet. I love that guy. I really do. I'd do anything for him, anything. Be clean. Be healed. Be raised from the dead. The parable of the Marine in Iraq. To be continued. Stay tuned.
Even after being president of the Iraq Vets Against the War here in Los Angeles, sometimes I still wish I could have been a drill sergeant. It would have been so much fun. I have a lot of respect for drill sergeants. They wake us up, they put us to sleep, and you know they have no life. Like absolutely no life. Even if they have families, I'm sure they are dejected. It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know how they do it. They are there 24/7 when we wake up, when we go to sleep, and obviously preparing shit for us while we sleep. It's freaking crazy. Before I went to Iraq, I had this drill sergeant. He asked what our MOSs were because he was like an 88 mic, like a transportation or truck driver. And he's like, who here's an 88 mic? And all the people who were 88 mics raised their hand. And he's like, who here's a medic? And all us medics raised our hand. And on. And he's like, okay, I'm an 88 mic. And I'm going to tell you what the life expectancy is. You're going to last 0.6 seconds on the battlefield. And I'm like, fuck. If a truck driver is 0.6, then what's a medic? 0.1? You know, when I heard about this Fort Hood thing last week, my heart just dropped. And then it turned into pure fury, because I feel like it could have been prevented. And all I can do is think, what can I do? The whole thing just disturbs me. I talked to some guys who said this would have never happened on a Marine base. And I was like, what the fuck? And they were like, yeah, those soldiers couldn't defend themselves.